Hello, I'm Jo and I'm a teacher from Twinkl. This is the final video in a series of 5 videos where we look at texts related to the topic of ancient Egypt. In each video, we look at different reading skills. There are questions to answer during our videos. You can write the answer down on the activity sheet which comes with the pack which accompanies this video. You could write the answers down on a piece of paper, or if you prefer, you could just think about the answers. It is a good idea to pause the video to give yourself time to write down the answers to these questions. To complete the questions today, you don't need to have seen the other videos because today we'll be looking at a new text, a poem called Mummy from the Twinkl Poetry Collection. And today our focus is to answer questions about a poem. Let's take a look. Now this poem is called Mummy. Given that we are learning about ancient Egypt, I wonder if you know what sort of mummy this poem is about. That's right. A mummy in ancient Egyptian times was a body that had been specially preserved and wrapped in bandages. The picture here doesn't show a mummy, it shows a sarcophagus, which is the special box which the mummy would have been placed inside. The ancient Egyptians used to preserve dead bodies through embalming them and then wrapping them in bandages. This isn't part of the poem, but for those of you that read the story of Osiris, I thought this might be interesting for you to see. So this is a picture of Isis and Anubis as they mummify the body of Osiris. In the background, you can see canopic jars. We'll find out in the poem what ancient Egyptian embalmers put inside those, if you don't know already, that is. Let me read you the whole poem, and then I'll ask you to answer some questions. I have to warn you, the way that ancient Egyptians mummified their dead is really fascinating, and it's also rather gory. Ancient Egyptians of long ago liked to look after their dead. They wrapped the body in bandages, from feet right to their head. Before all this, they had to hook the brain out through the nose. They bashed and whisked and stirred it into a goo that runs and flows. They cut the body to get inside, to rip out liver and lung, the stomach, the guts, the nasty bits, in canopic jars they slung. The heart could stay. Egyptians thought the core of mind and soul. They left it there, the kidneys too, and washed the body whole. It then was cleaned with wine and spice, and stuffed to seem like real. They dried it out with natron salt. That's not the end of the deal. That's the time for bandages, wrapping the mummy up tight, with amulets, gifts and goods, and jewels which sparkle bright. Laid in a sarcophagus, a coffin that's rather grand, packed for the afterlife with all their gold, they're judged for the promised land. Met by Osiris, the underworld god, the hearts were weighed for sin. The heavy ones were eaten up, but good ones made it in. Okay, let's read the poem again, this time stopping to see if you can answer some questions about the poem. Ancient Egyptians of long ago liked to look after their dead. They wrapped the body in bandages from feet right to their head. Before all this, they had to hook the brain out through the nose. They bashed and whisked and stirred it into a goo that runs and flows. So here's a question which is in stanza 2, shown on the screen here. Question 1. How did ancient Egyptian embalmers remove the brain from the body? Pause the video and write the answer. Well, the answer is they pulled it out through the nose with a hook. Question 2 also relates to this second stanza from the poem. What 3 past tense verbs from the poem show what the ancient Egyptians would do to the brain? That's question 2. Pause the video and write the answer. Well, the 3 past tense verbs you should have written down are bashed, whisked, and stirred. Well done if you got that right. Let's read on. They cut the body to get inside, to rip out liver and lung. The stomach, the guts, the nasty bits, in canopic jars they slung. The heart could stay, Egyptians thought, the core of mind and soul. They left it there, the kidneys too, and washed the body whole. Here are some questions about the 4th stanza. Question 3. Why did they leave the heart inside the body and not put that in a canopic jar too? That's question 3. Pause the video. Well, they left the heart inside the body as they thought it was the core of mind and soul. You might have also said that they thought the person might have needed these things in the afterlife. It then was cleaned with wine and spice and stuffed to seem like real. They dried it out with natron salt. That's not the end of the deal. Question 4. What 2 things did the ancient Egyptians use to clean bodies? Pause the video. Well, the 2 things used for cleaning were wine and spice. That's the time for bandages, wrapping the mummy up tight, with amulets, gifts and goods, and jewels which sparkle bright. Laid in a sarcophagus, a coffin that's rather grand, packed for the afterlife with all their gold, they're judged for the promised land. Met by Osiris, the underworld god, the hearts were weighed for sin, the heavy ones were eaten up, but good ones made it in. Question 5. How was it decided who would be allowed to enter the afterlife? Pause the video. Well, the answer is their hearts were weighed. Light hearts had little sin, so were allowed to enter. Heavy hearts meant they were not allowed in, and they were eaten up. The ancient Egyptians believed that a dead person would undergo a ceremony on their way to the afterlife, where their heart would be weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart was heavier than the feather, it meant they'd done bad goods on earth. And that would mean they would get eaten up by a god with the head of a crocodile. If the heart was lighter than the feather, Osiris, god of the afterlife, would permit them to pass happily into the afterlife. I hope you enjoyed that poem. There are some more questions included in the pack that accompanies the video. Remember to print off a copy of the poem, also included in the pack, or have the poem open on the screen so that you can look for the answers. Why don't you also give your own performance of this poem, reading it aloud before an audience? Goodbye.